On French Open time, Jenny Claffey is with us. Jenny, how are you?
Very well, good to be back here, guys.
You're not going to the French Open. We're delighted to have you here, but we're disappointed for you that you're not in Paris.
It's a shame we're not doing this live from the French Open today, but maybe next year.
Do you go to many of the tournaments? Like, is it okay? Are you okay going to tournaments now?
Yeah, interesting you put it that way, because when I was playing, like at the time when I was playing, I used to go to them more often, and then I had this love-hate relationship with tennis once I retired and didn't want to have anything to do with Wimbledon or any of the tournaments whatsoever. So this was going to be my
first time back,
my maiden trip back.
Oh right, okay.
Unfortunately, injury got in the way.
It's mad because isn't there a clip of Gary Neville? Someone said Gary Neville once was at a charity match or something, and he was like he just hated the idea of kicking the football. Just even when he retired, Stephen Hendry was the same in snooker for a while. Didn't want to pick up a cue. Like, is it the same in those intervening years immediately after you retire, that you're like, don't put me near a racket?
Definitely for me it was, because it was a forced retirement, with an injury that I sustained that it came out of nowhere. I didn't see that coming, and I was having such good success, and then I wanted to have nothing to do with tennis for a good, I'd say 2 to 3 years after. Didn't want to have anything to do with it, didn't want to go into coaching. Right. Subsequently now I have a tennis coaching business, but at that time I looked into moving careers. I didn't want to have anything to do with tennis, and then kind of my love has come back for the game in the last years.
What was the injury?
An elbow. I ended up with no cartilage in the joint surface of my elbow, so even now I can't straighten my arm fully because it's bone on bone, so it's quite painful still, and I can't play tennis now.
And you can't fix that. That's not like grow it in a lab and inject it in. It's just one of those things. You don't have it anymore. They're not making any more of it.
No, so they tried. I've had 2 surgeries on it, and the second one they drilled into they call it a microfracture thing, into the back of the elbow to try and release some cartilage, but it didn't.
It's loads of tiny little holes that they drill, and then it's supposed to seep out and heal.
Yeah, it didn't happen, unfortunately. But I'm waiting for some great new medicine.
Right. Yeah, breakthrough. And so you can't actually just play for fun?
No. So after I retired, I learned to play tennis left-handed.
Oh, right.
And coached left-handed for a good few years.
Holy shit! Wow,
that's impressive.
Well, I had to because I couldn't play.
Look at me, I'm not that good at sport. I'm just really good at everything.
Yeah.
Wow, sickening.
Yeah, so the odd time now I put it back in my right hand, but I can play left hand. It's pretty cool.
And is your injury a football injury?
The one I have now?
Yeah.
yeah. So, very annoying. Just go to another sport, and then I think I'm just made of glass, to be honest. Body breaks down at every chance.
Does the left arm feel like the right arm felt, if that makes sense?
Not at all. No. But it was a mad transition, because it was like completely trying to learn the game with the other hand, training your brain and everything, and the movement's so different. But then I started playing a lot, and then was considering competing with it. Just, not like for leagues and local, just for fun, to get back into it. But then I decided, why would I go from being the best with my right hand to then not being the best of my life?
That's very interesting little debate in your head. And so is that would you not just love the competition?
I find it playing football or paddle tennis or other sports. Not in tennis.
Yeah, ego, you see, comes into it as well.
That was it, my pride.
Totally. But would that not be amazing too, if you could win in your left-handed? Like, look, I could even win left-handed.
Yeah.
It's a bit Ronnie O'Sullivan.
Yeah.
But could you imagine if I lost to someone, they say they beat Jenny Claffey, they're not going to be saying they beat her with her left hand. So I could never live that down.
Wow. Okay, this is what separates the sports people from us. I just would okay, fair enough. Let's talk about the French Open. So Danny Medvedev straight out. That was a shock, right?
Yeah, I think it was a bit of a shock. Although at the same time, up until he won Rome Masters there a week ago, he was going on about, and everyone knew about how much he hated the clay court surface. But he had great form, as we said, in Rome. He won the title, and then he was talking about how he felt more confident on the surface, and then an absolute flop in the first round. He was the number 2 seed. I think people had kind of backed him to do better this year, but unfortunately he was beaten by a qualifier guy who's ranked outside the top 150 or something.
How important is form coming into a major? Like, is it generally speaking someone who has been shooting the lights out coming into a major that wins it, or can you have that almost someone who just springs from the blue and has a run?
Well, there seems to be, it's hard to predict that, I guess, because we've seen it over the years. Maybe not so much in the French Open with Nadal being so dominant, but you've seen on the women's side, players coming with having won no tournaments on the lead up, and then coming in and winning it. Świątek a few years ago, her first title, we had heard about her, but she wasn't dominating as much as she was, say, last year in the clay court season, and she'd won it. So, yes, you think form is going to to be an indicator anyway, and can be an indicator. But then if we look at Djokovic coming into the French Open this year, he's had no form. It's the first time he hasn't won a tournament coming into Roland Garros in the run-up on the clay court season in over 5 years or something, but we still can't count him out.
He's staying under the radar as well, Djokovic, as per usual.
Not looking forward to seeing what happens.
I saw a bit of Djokovic yesterday, particularly early on. So in the first set he really struggled, then really clear in the second set, but in the first set he was screaming at the box, like screaming at them and swearing, and not in, because I could understand it, in whatever language he speaks. It seemed like he was swearing in French or Spanish or something. Is that does he always ball out Ivanisevic and whoever else is beside him?
We've definitely seen it more often lately, that he's maybe feeling more of the pressure of, now trying to match or win the 23 Grand Slams. But we've seen it lately with him. We saw it in Australia as well. He was really screaming like Ivanisevic in that Grand Slam. And then apparently he's got a new, I'm not sure what role this guy, new coach or somebody in his box, and he was directing a lot of his anger towards him.
3 of them sitting beside each other, and this is the first time in France that the box can coach.
They're like, to talk.
I've been reading a bit about that this week, and I think last year they allowed it in America, and there was some other trials, and this is the first time that in this year it's going to be in France, and Wimbledon are finally caught up. What difference does it make?
The coaching, I mean, it's really good to have the positive reinforcements, but before you go out on a match court, you kind of have your tactical plan and your game plan, what you're going to do against a certain player. But then it's good to have that on the sideline. I mean, I'm not sure how much you can put down to winning or losing a match based on the coaching, but it does really help to have that positivity in your corner. Maybe if not so positively shouting at them, but it is somebody to vent at, and also players need that too, in the heat of battle. But you're saying there in the first set, it was like an hour and a half. The first set, it was 7-6, it was so close, and then he absolutely demolished him in the next 2 sets.
Fucsovic, my kids were loving the pronunciation, the incorrect pronunciation.
That's right.
we had to YouTube it just to make sure that we were saying it properly, so that would shut them up. But in case they go into school to say, I was like, what were you watching last night? But he had like 7 or 8 break points in the first set and only won 1, whereas Djokovic had won the break point that he had, so he's still a cold hard killer. Like, you give him an opportunity, he's going to take it.
Totally, we know that about Djokovic. He is just that steely, determined, incredible athlete with this amazing drive to win, and just doesn't let players in. Like, after a set like that yesterday, first set 7-6, you think the match would remain competitive, but it almost seems like Fucsovic just gave it his everything, and then just Djokovic has those extra gears that the other players don't have, and was able to rely on that, and then just ran away with the match. Because
we've actually seen that so often in his career, where he will drop a set occasionally in Grand Slams, and you think, this is going to be a close match, but it never really is. It's almost like he's working himself up to a level which is consistently 85-90%, and other players can get to that for a short period, however long it is. It can be a set, it can be a set and a half, sometimes it's 2 sets, and then they're just spent by the effort of getting up to that. Is that physical? Or is it the quality of the ball placement that wears you down?
I think it's a combination of a lot of things. Like for Djokovic, he just has so much in his repertoire, that these guys can match it, as you say, for 2 sets, but especially as well in a Grand Slam when it's best of 5 sets, that's where Djokovic seems to come alive against other guys. In best of 3 sets, it's a different game altogether, whereas Djokovic just seems to have another level beyond these other guys. And also, like, he's been playing the game for so many years, he's been in these situations far longer than some of these guys he's playing against. He's played so many 5-set matches as well in his time, so the experience he can draw on that as well. But if they're able to match him for 2 sets, then it becomes, I guess, that maybe Djokovic has figured out the way to play the match, and then he also has that physicality on these guys that he can outlast any opposition.
He did look a bit like an octopus at various stages. There was I don't know if it's just the way the cameras are now placed for the Ultra HD, but there's bits where you kind of see his contortion as he's like facing one direction, leans over, and then the ball is gone. I was like, I haven't actually seen or noticed how physically pliable he is compared to normal human beings.
Yeah, he has spent a lot of time.
Elastic, yeah.
Yeah, he is. He spent a lot of time, I think, and that was a big focus maybe about 8 to 10 years ago on like the yoga and the flexibility, that side of the game, because that's obviously where you're going to break down as well as an athlete if you're not working on those the mobility, flexibility, that kind of stuff. And he spent a huge amount of time focusing on it. You can see it, like he literally, as you said, his body is back, everything's facing that way, but his legs are facing forward. He's kind of,
and the ball
superhuman.
is pinged straight into the corner, and like
he can retrieve every ball.
It's funny how his attitude, that negative, like shouting at Ivanisevic, is the complete opposite of Carlos Alcaraz. He's getting a lot of praise for like really sunny, happy disposition nearly all of the time. Looks like he's playing a practice match. Even that game, I think Tsitsipas said the same. He constantly has a smile on his face. Alcaraz probably inspiring other players to play that way, because obviously he's world number one, so it works. But that game against Taro Daniel yesterday, I think he won it in 4 sets, Alcaraz. But I mean, he's getting the job done, but with a smile on his face, which is brilliant. I
think it's lovely to see in the game as well, because like in the past we've had obviously like Djokovic and Federer and Nadal.
When Federer came through, he was a brat.
Well, as a kid, he was.
Always screaming at people.
I think Alcaraz is just really enjoying his tennis, and I think that's something we can see. Like as you said, like with the smile on his face, like he plays these amazing shots, and then you see him smiling. Like as the opposition, that's very annoying.
It's intimidating as well.
But he has this level of confidence as well, and that's showing in his game too. But the enjoyment factor is actually making him more appealing. As you say, like it's nice to watch that as well. Somebody who doesn't look to be struggling as much as you might see with other players. But again, he is only he's so young, he's so new to the game as well. Give him a few more years in it.
He's fresh.
He's fresh.
To get ground down. Cynical.
Not that you want to knock that smile off his face, but let's see if that will continue.
What impact does the wind have? Because even on the Philippe Chatrier court yesterday, that was one thing that was mentioned after that match. Is the wind an actual big factor during those games?
It will be. Because for example, like if he plays with so much power, Alcaraz, the wind is going to take away a bit of that power. Like if you say, for example, hitting into the wind, so you're not knocking the opponent off the court as easily as you would. The points are going on a bit longer. I mean, for Alcaraz, he did say he said the windy was affecting him, and that's why he lost that set. But he never really looked in too much danger, I thought. But the wind will impact. Of course, the conditions are going to impact the players, because it takes a bit of the bite out of the ball when it's windy. If you've got the wind behind you, though, then that's a different. You've got more of an advantage then.
It's funny. Was it Sloane Stephens I saw talking about? You're talking about some of the initiatives that the French Open have come up with this year, and Sloane Stephens was talking about the mental health issues and the abuse of players, and she said it's getting worse. And this year, the French Open organisers have offered players AI, so artificial intelligence protection. I don't know how this works.
You sign in, basically. You use this app to sign into your account, and then it blocks
each of the social media accounts that you have.
It blocks anything that they think, any combination of words that might be abusive.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like, I would have thought players at a Grand Slam wouldn't be logging into their social media accounts anyway, but clearly this generation would be. So it's something to think about. I'm sure during a tournament you have that much downtime and that much time to be on your phone and things to distract yourself. I guess that would be something important.
There are so many distractions. Obviously, playing those big tournaments like the Grand Slams, like there's a lot of immediate attention, but there is a huge amount of downtime, as you said there. When you play, you have in the day you might go through your routines of obviously outside of meal times, it's a warm up and then your match time, but then there's a whole other host of hours in the day to fill. But I do think that's really important that the Grand Slams are addressing that issue with mental health. I'm not sure how effective that will be, but you can see on the women's side that a few players are now taking breaks. Like we have Muguruza, then the Spanish player who's a Grand Slam champion. She's taken time away from the court now due to mental health. We had Naomi Osaka a few years ago citing mental health as the reason why she took a break. We're seeing it more and more. I think the demands of the tennis tour is really, really huge on these players, and they're now deciding, and it's good to see they're prioritising their mental health and looking after themselves first.
What about on the women's side? Świątek obviously still alive, Coco Gauff still alive. Who else do you like, and how are they getting on at the moment, do you think? What's the
So I'm glad to see, firstly, that we have a bit of a rivalry going on in the women's game with Rybakina, Świątek and Sabalenka. I think Sabalenka's coming in hot now after winning Madrid, although it's a bit of a different, the clay in Madrid, it's played at altitude, the tournament, so it's much faster, which suits her game. But I like her chances on the bottom half of the draw, Sabalenka. The top half with Świątek and Rybakina, that'll make for an interesting semi-final. Gauff, obviously last year's finalist, she's going to meet Świątek in the quarterfinals. So Świątek has a pretty tough road to the final. If she beats Gauff in the quarter, she then meets Rybakina. But there's been a good few matches, few competitive matches so far in the tournament that we've seen. But I still will back Świątek to win.
So you think ideally we'll see them playing it out in quarterfinal, semi-final, so there's big games to look forward to with the best players who've kind of established themselves over the last couple of years, because we've talked repeatedly about what happens in the post-Serena world, and we are here now. And there's a big opportunity for somebody to lay down a marker and make an all-time great name for yourself, right?
Yeah, I think Świątek is in the process of doing that anyway, since her dominance last year, since Ash Barty retired. But it's great to see that the likes of Sabalenka and Rybakina are starting to challenge her, and she hasn't had much competition up till now. But like the men's side, we had the top three with Federer, Djokovic and Nadal. Now we're kind of seeing these rivalries between Sabalenka and Rybakina and Świątek, and hopefully this will be a rivalry that will push the game on even more in the coming years.
I was watching the Coco Gauff match yesterday. Rebecca Masarova, the Spanish player that she beat, she's still only 19, Coco Gauff, but she's not the finished article. I know she got to the final last year, but even in that first set that she lost yesterday, I think the commentators were pointing out her forehand wasn't where it should be. So there's still issues there with her.
Yeah, she's, as you said, she's not the finished article yet. She's still got a lot of parts of her games to polish. But as she's 19, she's so much time for that. But at the same time, she's shown great strides in terms of getting to the final last year. She has an amazing all-round game, but her serve was a bit of an issue last year, and then the forehand wasn't firing yet and hasn't been firing this year at all. She hasn't had too many great results so far this year.
Maybe your injury will heal by the time Wimbledon comes around, if you can get tickets for Wimbledon.
I'd be doing anything to get tickets for Wimbledon if I could. Anyone listening, please.
There you go. We're officially sending the shout out. And so would you beat the best tennis player at off the ball left-handed? I presume that's Colin, by the way. I'm volunteering him here.
Must be. Yeah.
we need to have an OTB
hot topic
bracket, and then you would beat them left-handed.
I'll play them right-handed and I'll play them left-handed.
How about right-handed?
Well, let's see. We'll give them the benefit of both.
Humiliation. No.
We need to call Colin out in this one because he's been challenging me. So
doubles. Okay, and he's not even here. This is the perfect time to do it.
We should have doubles. We should have two on one side, and then it's yourself, Jenny, on the other side by yourself. So at least give us
we get
American doubles.
We get the full doubles.
I'll let the three of you have it. Yeah, go on.
Okay, that sounds great. All right, Jenny, good stuff. Thanks a million.
Thanks, guys.
It's 8:50.